What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Bark River North Country EDC. Now, the North Country EDC, it falls into that same category of the Chris Rivniala, of the Winkler General, which is kind of a smaller blade, kind of good for EDC tasks that you will find in the outdoors, camping, or in the woods. That's kind of what this is good for. It's a smaller blade, but very, very robust. They're actual, full tank construction, thicker blade. But it's when you're out in the woods, I generally like to have two blades: a small blade like this and a large blade that helps me with more heavier duty tasks, more heavy wood processing with chopping or betoning through knotty wood, that kind of thing, which is not what this is going to be for. I generally have one of this on my person, and I usually have the larger blade either in my car or in my pack that stays in my camp, or nearby, but probably not carrying it on me. So let me give you kind of a tour of the knife, and we can start talking about it. What you have here is a convex ground blade with a little bit of a flat that turns into a swedge for piercing. It's got a lot of belly. Most of it is belly. Maybe there's a little bit of flat right around this area of the blade, but most of it is belly. This version, it's CPM 154, and so there's two versions of the 154 metal, right? The CPM, the particle metallurgy steel, which is this one, which is the one that is better. And then there's the 154 CM, which is the non-powder version. So if you had to choose between those two, this is a better steel. But still, I would say that CPM 154 is a decent steel. It's not the best steel for fixed blades, in my opinion. I like 3D or crew wear for my fixed blades. Those are my preferred steels. But I do think it's adequate, especially for a blade at this size. I think it works well. And in all honesty, it's the one that was available right now. Bark River does kind of runs of these knives, and they, 1 year they'll do a run of these in 154, in CPM 154, and then a year later maybe they do them in 3V, and maybe a year later they do it in S45EN. Kind of the same thing that they do with the Bravo 1 series and all of those. So it's kind of a luck of the draw when you decide to purchase this blade, which steel you're going to be able to get. What you have here is it's a very classical Coke bottle shaped handle from Bark River, which is just very, very, very ergonomic. This one is in white acrylic, and I have orange liners on this one. This is just the version that I wanted to get. There's literally hundreds of permutations and options for the handle. Like I said, full tank construction, and then you have a small lanyard hole in the back that's perfectly flush with everything else in the knife. So that's kind of the tour of the knife. So like I said, this is a smaller blade, and let me give you a size comparison. And so here it is against the SC5, and here it is against the SC3. So definitely more in the range of the SC3. Certainly with the same cutting edge as the SC3, as you can see right there. Now the SC3 does have a forward choil, so it's a little bit longer, and so you can get a little bit closer to the action if you want to do some finer tasks. But definitely the North Country EDC, I don't feel like I'm too far away from the action. I mean, the distance from where my finger is and where I have some control to the blade is not that great. It's not zero like in the SC3 right here, but it's very close. So these are very comfortable in terms of size. In actuality, the North Country EDC, it's a little bit thicker than the SE3. Now, let me show you, for those of you, if this is one of your first fixed blades and you want to compare it to a folder, here it is against the Para 2 and against the Para 3. So, like I said, for me, fixed blades, you know, a 3.5-inch blade is considered a very, very small blade. And this blade is just over 3.5 inches. Now, that's what I would consider a full-size knife in a folder. But in a fixed blade, I think it's probably the smallest usable edge that I will carry when I'm out. I generally don't go anywhere below 3.5 inches. It just becomes too small a knife for kind of anything that you want to do out in camping or in the woods. So let me start with the ergonomics. And the ergonomics on Bark River knives are incredible. For the most part, a lot of their handles are shaped very similarly. Okay, in fact, for example, the North Country, there's a large bladed version of this knife, but the handle is very, very similar, if not identical. So what they've done is kind of been able to dial in the ergonomics of the handle. This Coke bottle that they've done. If you hear Mike Stewart talk about it, you know, it used to be where it wasn't that prominent, the palm swell here. It used to be that the flare out here was the same in the front, and then they've dialed it in where, you know, since you have more force and more control and you need more strength up in the front, they've done it to where it's thicker in the back and then it flares out, and then it comes to the thinnest portion of the knife is right out here where you want to have the most strength and you want to be able to grip the handle the most. So the ergonomics on Bark River knives are just outstanding. They are just very, very, very good. They do so many fixed blades, they do so many different designs, but one thing that is consistent kind of across the board is that they do incredibly well made handles. Now, I wear a large glove, and this just fits my hand perfectly. The space between this kind of a groove right here and this groove, and where the palm swell is located for the kind of two longest fingers, is just perfect. It locks the knife. I usually like a saber grip right here, but a hammer grip is also really, really nice. It gives me all the handle I need and no more, right? Even if I have a lanyard, you can see I can put a lanyard here without it being obtrusive to where I hold the knife. Ergonomics are just outstanding. Bark River knives, they do an excellent, excellent job. Now, let's talk about cutting. So cutting, for example, cutting notches on pieces of wood. You know, if you want to do, some bushcraft type steaks and that kind of thing, it's excellent for that kind of thing. Food preparation is excellent for that kind of thing. And if you're gonna do, I'm not gonna say batoning, but kindling, just let's say batoning, but in a small scale, this is excellent for all of those kinds of things. I didn't enjoy so much doing feather sticking with this, and the reason is usually feather sticking with a convex grind, it's a little bit harder. So for those of you who don't know, most grinds, if you take a look at the SE, it's a flat grind from the top to the secondary bevel right here, and then there's another kind of small flat from here to here, but it's a full flat grind. In other words, there's just you can put a straight edge all across here, and this kind of edge it works fairly well for feather sticking. In my opinion, a saber grind is probably a little bit better, where you have a little bit of flat that carries to about right here, and then you have the primary bevel. Now, what you get with a convex is not, it's not two surfaces that are straight. They are convexed out. They have a curvature. There's a curvature that slopes in this direction. I'm kind of exaggerating with my hand here. There's a curvature there, and what that does is it provides a lot of stability to the edge. So if we analyze, so a hollow grind, right, where the blade is ground in this direction, it's very slicey because it comes to a very, very thin edge, but the stability of the edge is not great, right? So you can't do very, very heavy duty tasks with a hollow grind. Now with a convex grind, you can do a lot heavier duty. There's a lot of material stabilizing that edge. But what happens is when you try to feather stick and you're close to the wood, the curvature kind of pushes you a little bit of away from the wood. So it's not great. It's not a great feather sticker. You know, a Scandi grind, a flat grind, a saber grind, I think are better for feather sticking. But because it's a more stable edge, when you baton, you know, when you're kind of going through kindling, and you do kindling because you don't have a lot of edge on this to push through wood, right? You can only do probably about an inch, maybe an inch and a half a piece of wood. That's the only thing that you're going to be able to go through. But what that does is it touches the edge, but after it touches the edge and it splits the wood, it acts as a wedge, you know, so the wood is actually pushing against the sides of this thing. So for those kinds of things, really, really good. For food preparation, because of the belly, it's really, really nice for you know, skinning a little bit. I don't do a whole heck of a lot of skinning, but when I've done it, it works remarkably well. It is just very, very, it's just very good. It's kind of a nice all-around knife. I still think I like the Miala better, the General a little bit better. But man, it's just the ergonomics on this thing are so good that it just finds itself in my pocket, or not in my pocket, at my hip, a lot of the time. Now, in my typical reviews, when I'm reviewing a folding knife, this is the area where I talk about the action. Obviously, there's no action on this, but I will talk about the sheath, and I like the sheath on this quite a bit. It's a very simple sheath, okay? But I'm kind of drawn to this very minimalistic sheath. Obviously, it can be worn left carry or right carry. Okay, so it's very, very simple. But it has, let me see if I can show you, it has a magnet inside of it. Look, can you see it? So what it does is that the knife is held in place not only by the kind of the tension and the pressure of the wood. I mean, not the wood, of the leather, but also because there's a magnet here that holds it in place. So it's actually very, very secure. Now, it's vertical carry only, at least this sheath is. So it's very difficult for this knife to kind of come out of your pocket. The sheath is very, very nicely done. I still haven't done the leather treatment, so it will get darker. Maybe I'll show you in a later video how this turns out, kind of a before and after photo of this. Let's talk fit and finish. And fit and finish on Bark River knives is just outstanding. I think they are one of the premier makers of fixed blades in the world, really. Their ability to use hundreds of different steels, their ability to heat treat so well all of these steels, it comes incredibly sharp. I mean, I've used this knife, I've gone camping with this knife. I've done I've done a pretty good amount of cutting on this, and still, you know, it's just very, 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 very slicey. It's so crazy sharp. Can you see? And that's after use, and I haven't touched up the edge. I haven't even stropped it yet. So they do a tremendous job sharpening these knives and heat treating these knives. The transition areas from the scale to the liner to the tang, is just seamless. If you close your eyes, you probably couldn't even be able to tell when you're transitioning from one place to the other. It is so incredibly seamless. The pins, you can't even feel them. The lanyard hole, none of that. And the blade grind, a lot of these are ground by hand, and they're so symmetrical that is just incredibly well done knives. I think, you know, they're not cheap. I think these run you about $320 or thereabouts, about $300. But I think Bark River knives, I think you get what you pay for, and with Bark River, you get a lot of bang for your buck, in my opinion. The fit and finish on these knives is excellent. One thing that I want to mention, it's not a full 190-degree edge here, but it is sharp enough to strike a ferro rod. I've used it for striking ferro rod. And I just test it because I usually like to have a striker with me in my ferro rod. My ferro rod always has a striker hanging from it. So I try to not use the back of my blade. I prefer not to use my blades for that. Most people prefer to do that, so I test it, and this actually has a sharp enough edge to ignite a ferro rod. Well, guys, I think that's all I have. I don't have any grievances against this knife. I think it works exactly as it's intended to work. If there's any failings on it, is because I'm trying to make it do something that it doesn't do. But that's my use for the knife, right? My use of the knife is wood processing, food preparation, cutting notches, whittling, feather sticking, making kindling, light camp tasks, cutting rope, cutting paracord, those kinds of things. Those are my uses, and for that, I would highly recommend this knife. It's becoming really hard for me to pick between this one and the Winkler General and the Chris Rugniala. You know, I think all of those knives started to, you know, gain a lot of hip time, so to speak. So hopefully this helps you. I do recommend this knife. I think it's excellent. I think the fit and finish is outstanding, and I think that the size is really, really nice. Well, guys, hopefully this has been helpful for you, and if it was, then like and subscribe, and don't get notified. Nobody likes to get more notifications. You know where to find me if you like my content. Come see me again, and until I see you again, take care.